thing keeps popping up with different things on the screen. I don't know what it's saying. Out for a walk, have my coffee, because I need to get a walk in. So I want to talk about really why the heck it is I'm starting this channel. But by the way, I just wanted to say I'm so frustrated because I'm retired. I retired last year. Retired because I wanted to not have to deal with shit at work and all the challenges that come along with shit at work and to deal with other people's problems. I'm tired of dealing with other people's problems, and I feel, a little bit like I shouldn't feel that way, because there were a lot of people in the last 5 or 6 years who had to deal with a lot of people's problems, health-wise and stuff like that, with all the stuff that was going on in the world. And so I kind of feel guilty that I say I'm just tired of dealing with people's problems, but yeah, I was. So that was reason for me to decide to retire early, or retire at my benefit time. It was a benefit that I signed on for, to give them my time in exchange, yes, for some money, but I also get to retire at the age of 54. So I decided to take it. Anyway, and like the very next day, so I think it was in 2021, January 2021, someone called in sick at work. And I was like, I had to figure it out. I had to change my day to figure out how I was going to cover the office, because there is this requirement to cover the office. Man, this thing. Hopefully I learned this better. And so, I have to cover the office. And that was the day I wrote in my notes, I need to figure out how to get out of here. I need to come up with either a business idea to get me some other income outside of there or whatever. Well, also happens that one of my elementary school friends had been posting that she was taking her retirement at 55 for her. We're the same age, she's just a few months older, so her place of employment, the way it worked out, she had to get to 55. Anyway, and I thought, it's 2021. My pension paperwork kept saying all I had to do was get to 2025, May 1st, 2025, and I could retire. So I thought, I should check this out just a little bit more. And then always the questions are, do you have enough money and all this other stuff? But that part at that moment in time wasn't the problem. I needed to just not have to deal with people's problems. So I looked at that, and turns out there weren't any restrictions. I just needed to get to May 1st, 2025. And, obviously from there, figure those pieces out. But I fortunately was in a place of employment, which I am very grateful for, that I had the ability to be able to take my pension without penalty at that time. So, always the questions are, is there enough money and all this other stuff? And, I was certainly doing things over the last few years to make sure that I was taking care of my financial situation as best that I could. And I tried to live pretty quietly. I wasn't planning on traveling a bunch of places, and wasn't planning on doing a bunch of things, and I just needed to be able to have some income. And I always certainly budgeted. Well, not when I was in wicked debt a lot of years ago and almost had my house and power cut off, but that's another story. So I have been I've been following a cash flow budget for a lot of years, like, 20 some years now at this point. I live in a spreadsheet. but I know what my cash flow looks like. So I started preparing for cash flow to be different when I retired. And I started to just kind of, before I retired, I started to live like I was only having that for my cash flow. So that was kind of like the start for me to help get ready. Anyway, so that's all good. I retire, and the next day my partner gets sick. It's not his fault. He gets sick. And we went, to emergency care, and they didn't know why he was sick. Just said he probably got some weird virus. Sent him home. If it gets worse, come back. But, a lot of people sick with colds and stuff like that. So he would take a Tylenol and he just went to bed. And that went on for the rest of that week. And the weekend, he was a little bit worse. Quite a bit worse, actually. And I said, we should probably go to the hospital. Oh, no. I'll just take Tylenol and go to bed. So he ended up that evening getting up, and he was sweating so bad, like so bad. Like his body was just like he just got out of the shower and didn't towel off. So he went and had a shower. He was having a conversation with me, and went and had a shower, went to bed. In the middle of the night, I heard him get up again, and I didn't think much of it. And I'd gotten up in the morning, and anyway, I was like, what happened in this bathroom? Anyway, and I checked on him, and he was sleeping kind of there, and took his temperature, passed him the thermometer. He took it and said, I can't hear you, but took the thermometer, put it in his mouth. Didn't have a temperature, so I left him sleep, because I'm like, well, he needs to sleep. So he didn't get up later on that morning, and I had gone and done chores, and I was out busy doing things, and I came in and I'm like, gosh, he still's not up yet. Or maybe he was up and gone back to bed. I don't know. So I checked on him again. It was the afternoon now at this point, and took his temperature, and he just at this point was kind of screaming like a baby. And so I was like, anyway, he just didn't even recognize me. He was looking at me through his eyes, but he wasn't there. And so I called 911. Here we go, here. Come on. So I called 911. Man, this thing. And, by the way, I was on hold to get through to 911 for close to 10 minutes. On hold. Anyway, finally got through to 911, and they were sending an ambulance, and it was over an hour before the ambulance got there. And anyway, so by the time the ambulance got there and stuff like that, they came and assessed him, and it's bad. And so trying to figure out how we were going to get him out, because we were upstairs. So they had to call another ambulance. And anyway, ended up getting him strapped into a chair, which, he just was screaming in so much pain. And, but I wasn't really sure if he was going to turn into a fighter, because, that's kind of what people do, right? They get pretty defensive when they're in pain. Anyway, got him into the chair, and as soon as they got him into the chair, this stair chair it's called, and got him strapped in, he settled right down, and they got him down the stairs and into the ambulance and off to the hospital. And so by the time I got to the hospital, they called me in to the emergency room, because they were doing their best to deal with him and work with him, but of course he was fighting so bad and in so much pain And they had him strapped down, and they had, I don't know, it was about 6 different people in there kind of working at him. And they said, if you could come in, maybe you can calm him down a little bit. Like, he knows who you are, your voice and stuff like that. So I did. I kept trying. I was in there with them and stuff like that. And they had him maxed out pretty much on all the pain meds that they could possibly get him on. And then, anyway, doctor was kind of confident about what the diagnosis was going to be. It was going to be probably sepsis, and they called it something else. But I was hearing these words in the room, so I was kind of, cluing into what was potentially being said. And then it wasn't very long after that, and then there was a big quarantine sign that came up on the door, and it was just now me and this one nurse now that were allowed in the room, basically, because we were in there, and so anybody else who came in had to come in gowned, because at that point they didn't know if you had something else, the good old COVID from years ago. Anyway, in the end, it wasn't that. But then the doctor came in again and said, it is this septic. And I said, all right, well, give it to me straight up. Like, what's the deal? And he was like, it's a kind of a 1 in 3. Don't make it. I was like, great. So I said, what does 1 in 3 look like? And he said, well, basically, they're on a ventilator. So at this point in time, he's not on a ventilator. So we'll keep working with that. So that's how that night went. By the next day, he'd gotten finally into a bed in the ICU. And again, it wasn't good. He was in there for 3 more days. But on the 3rd day in the actual ICU, when I called that morning, they were like, yeah, he's sitting up in his bed or in his chair. And I was like, what? I mean, the day before when I was in to see him, he seemed like he was kind of trying to be a little more responsive, but he certainly wasn't. And he hadn't been responsive other than screaming in pain whenever the nurses tried to touch him or take a test or do something else. He just really, that's really all that he would do. Anyway, and so I was shocked when I called the next day and he was sitting in his chair. So I immediately got myself in there, and he kept saying, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. So then that's why, even when we were trying to comfort him before, he couldn't, there was no comforting because he couldn't hear. So, okay, so I immediately tootled off to our local dollar store and got us a dry boy erase mark, or, one of those what the heck, your whiteboards. Good gosh. I got a whiteboard, a little cheap whiteboard and some markers and an eraser, and that's how we began to communicate. And so that's basically how the next year went in terms of communicating. And anyway, lots of stuff that happened in the next 12 months. But now to say he has a cochlear implant, and so he's able to hear somewhat, and that's a lot better now. So, I mean, it's not like it was when he had hearing, but he has some hearing. So that was that story. And also in there, my mom, which I knew this was happening before I actually physically retired, she had cataracts, and she had them so bad that she had to have, they were actually recommending a special surgeon for her, which was in the city. And so that just meant that, we had to go to appointments a little further away than when I had my cataracts done. So no big deal there. She's still working, and she enjoys working. So she needed a driver to get to work, and she was still able to work. She just couldn't drive. So she started staying with us, and so I was driving her to work and to her appointments, and driving Leon to his appointments and keeping up with him. And so I became, the joke was really quick, I became a seniors assisted living care driver person, whatever, like in a blink of an eye. And I share all that because the funniest thing is you kind of got to be careful what you wish for, or be careful what you say to the universe. So one of the reasons that I was wanting to retire, so I started out saying, well, it was because I was tired of dealing with other people's problems, and holy cow, did I get some problems. But anyway, the other piece to that was, friends of mine were acquaintances I have had my age, year too younger, year too older, and they were getting sick, and they were getting terminal diagnoses. They were getting Alzheimer's. They were getting cancer. They were having a heart attack and just dying. It was those things. And so as you get older, you start to realize what's ahead of you is a lot shorter than what's behind you. And so it was time for that. So I kept saying, well, I don't know how much more time I have in my body. And on my dad's side, on his biological mother's side, like on his mother's side, and we don't know what about his father. That's complicated. I'll just leave it there. But on his mother's side, we know that family lineage was certainly having a lot of Alzheimer's. So his mother and all of his aunts and uncles on that side had Alzheimer's. So I'm like, well, if that's what my cards are saying, what I have on my mom's side is a really strong lineage of, my grandmother made it to 100. She was 100 and a half. And sharp as a tack. Able to play cards until her vision became her problem, but she was a character. So I have that on that side. I have on my dad's mom's side, I have the Alzheimer's piece. So I'm like thinking of all these other life situations, and I'm like, if I only have 6 years left of this brain, whatever it is, I don't know, so at 70 and change, 75 is when the Alzheimer's was starting to kick in on my grandmother's side, for my dad's side. So, hey, 55, 50, whatever, 20 years. But I also have friends that 60 and under that Alzheimer's and now in assisted care living. So if I'm 54 and 60, I'm going to be going into an assisted living. I don't know. Do I want to give those last 6 years to an employer? For what? And when you start to do the budget calculations, that was the other thing. So when we started to do the budget calculations, if I got to 60, it was, okay, so maybe it's another few $100s more a month that I would have had on my monthly pension. To get to 65, it'd be a few more $100. And I just started to do the math and thinking, like, really we're talking $10,000 in a year. And $10,000 is a lot of money, absolutely. But I could figure out another way to make $10,000 if I was in a shortfall situation, right? Like, I could figure it out, because I also was helping. I was teaching some clinics, helping people with their horses. I had my website stuff that I could do, so I could have clients there if I really needed to. I've always wanted a YouTube channel. No sweet clue if this will ever get monetized, but well, I don't know. Like if it does, it's a few extra dollars. So, and the other thing is the formula that works is really, it's like you have your revenue, income, and you have your expenses. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you have some left over. So it's about balancing the formula. It's a simple formula. A plus B equals C, right? And so if you need to change the result of the formula, there's like only two other things that you can really change. So sometimes that means so if increasing revenue isn't one, then it's decreasing expenses. So I already have plans in place if I need to decrease expenses. Like, we'll figure that out. It reminds me as well of the success principles that Chicken Soup for the Soul. Oh shoot, I can see him just as plain as day. But anyway, he has a book called Success Principles, and one of the formulas, one of the chapters in the book is E plus R equals O. So the event plus your response equals the outcome. And so basically there are certain things sometimes that you can't change in things happening. So an event, you can't change necessarily some of those things, like a lightning strike, a tornado, a market crash. There's things like that you might not be able to change. Leon's health, that was happening. I couldn't change the event, but I could change my response to have a different outcome. And so sometimes the outcome is more about the emotional health of the outcome as you come out through it. Okay, so basically budgeting is the same thing. It's the same formula. So I just kind of went with, okay, I have to make a decision now. I'm just going to go. So that's what I did. This is where I'm at now. And now one of the other goals that I kept saying in my retirement that I wanted to do is I wanted to walk. And I didn't walk until December of last year. I started actually walking. And I, kept coming up with other excuses because I was dealing with this, dealing with that, right? And I allowed those to become an excuse versus how do I figure out other ways to do that. So then I actually did start in December. I just started walking, got my treadmill fired up. Turns out you also have to take care of the belt on the treadmill. So I've learned how to do that. And then, so I did that. I was really, after that for a bit, I was making sure I was walking every day, treadmill or outside. And then I got busy with the horses again, and then kind of stopped walking. And then, so I've wanted to do this YouTube. I want to tell my story. Minimal editing. I'm sure there's going to be some edits in here. I'm going to fix a few things. But I kind of just want to talk. And I don't really want to teach things. I just want to talk. So right now this channel, at the time I'm recording this, this channel is called Retired Now What with Janice. I don't know if I'll keep that or not, but it kind of still is like exactly what the heck is going on. Like, it's like, what the heck? Like, maybe that's what it is, but it's like, yeah, so at this moment in time, this is what I'm saying, recording. So yesterday I got this gimbal. So this is where we started this chat with. Got this gimbal. So I'm so new with this gimbal, trying to figure out how to hold it up and down and Hopefully you're not getting too seasick with this, because I'm not paying attention, which also probably is not helping this either. I'm not holding it up high enough, and maybe I needed a different one that has an extender on it, yada yada. But here we are. Got this mic, so hopefully that's working. I keep seeing these things pop up on the screen. I don't know what it's saying because it's going so fast and I'm not paying attention. But back to that walking conversation. So I am now out going for a walk, having a coffee, getting my steps in, clearing my mind for whatever now is coming next. Because no matter what, there's going to be something's coming next. Getting over the fact that, yes, there's going to be people driving and they're going to see me holding this thing and thinking, oh God, what is she doing? Who cares? Who cares? Everybody's doing their thing. So I don't know what I'm getting for steps in, but I'm getting quite a few now. It's been that was all uphill getting to this part, and now I'm all on the downhill. Is that another metaphor for how life is, basically? Sure. So it's a lovely day here. I mean, it's drizzly, it's whatever. I don't know if I can turn this thing around. I'm going to try and see what happens here. So if it doesn't work, apologies. But let's see. I'll just turn this way. So what you're looking at over my shoulder is the Bay of Fundy. And it's really foggy today, so you can't see it. But normally, from where I am, I'd be able to see the Bay of Fundy as well as New Brunswick. So that's the other province on the other side of the Bay of Fundy from us here in Nova Scotia. Anyway, it's nice out. Like, it's drizzly, it's whatever. Its temperature is not bad. This thing is jumping all around. I kind of hold still here. See if I can't lock that back in again better. Okay, so it's nice here. Maybe that's I need to figure out how my balance is and then hold my hand. So what I've just done is figured it out, but I finally got my elbow locked into my shoulder, into my ribs, holding this, and so it seems to be a little bit better. But that's kind of also, with riding, you kind of got to lock your shoulders in a little bit and hold your arms still. Okay, so I don't know. I have no idea. If you're still with me, thank you. Good Lord, you've been still here. So if you're still with me, my name is Janice. I am grateful for you for showing up and sticking to the end. If you've been here before, bless you for coming back. And I guess we'll see what next adventure is on our horizon. And maybe you can tell me in the comments as well, like, what if you've retired or want to retire or things like that. What retirement was like for you, or what were the things that happened that you didn't expect to happen. That's a lot of questions to be asking. You're supposed to, when you do marketing courses and stuff like that, you're only supposed to do one thing. Like, I'm only supposed to ask you to do one thing. Well, there's too many things. But that's also just how I roll sometimes. So anyway, I appreciate that you are here, and hope you come back. I will continue to share some more of my stories, what retirement's like, and just some other things in general of, how I try to live my life, the things that I do or whatever. Try not to be any advicer person. I don't want to give advice, but, I think we all have some wisdom from our experiences, and that's what anyone has. We all have it. We have our experiences that make us unique and wise as we get older. So thanks for being here. Till next time.